Hello, this is Carla, the Crazy Cross Stitch Lady, and I am back for another tutorial. We are in a series right now where I am going through the process of reading a cross stitch pattern, and instead of just showing you a little bit and then letting you go at it, I decided to do the entire picture in a series. So we're going to do the whole pattern together, and I may be talking about some various cross stitch types of things as I work on this. So if you are new to this and you want to watch me the whole time and just kind of follow with your own pattern, you can. This pattern is a cupcake pattern. This is from, I believe I got it off of Caterpillar Cross Stitch. So if you go to Caterpillar Cross Stitch or Google that, you'll probably find this cupcake. It's a free chart online, so that's why I'm able to show it here on the video. If you are an experienced stitcher and you really don't need this at this point, please feel free to use this as a stitch along and just have something to listen to, and listening to stitching stuff while you stitch is always a really cool thing to do. So I'm getting better about being able to videotape things like this that are on my table, and hopefully at some point I will have something more than just the table. I'd like to have a pretty tablecloth to put on it, so that's one of my goals anyway, but it's a process just like everything else. So we're going to go for about 30 minutes. I try to keep these videos to around 30 minutes, maybe a tiny bit more sometimes, but try to keep it close to that until we get completely finished with this pattern. So it may take us several tutorials to do this, but that is perfectly okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to zoom in here just so you can see a little bit closer. And I'm not sure if that is too close, but I want you to really be able to see the stitches that I'm making as I'm doing that and following the pattern, so we can see the pattern very much up close here too. So right now, what I have to do is look at the pattern that I have so far and look at what I have marked off. And it looks like if you notice, when I've got like this part and this part, and I'm on this third part, well, it threw me a little bit at first because, as you notice on this row, I don't have anything marked, but I think I was just going through one row at a time. So what I'm going to do right now is take my highlighter, and I'm just going to go ahead and mark these first two little sections just so I don't start getting confused. We're still working on the purple. We're working on the icing part of the cupcake. Okay, now I've got those two done. And now we can see that I have to start out one stitch ahead of this one on this row, and then I'm coming in and stopping one stitch short. So that's kind of how I look at it. It's easier once you get going if you do it in relation to where other stitches are. So this one, this thread, what I'm going to do, since I haven't worked with it for a little bit, I'm just going to take it and just run my fingers up over it just to kind of smooth it out a little bit. And then we are going to proceed with our stitching. And I may need to move that camera. I may need to is unzoom a word? I don't know. Let me pull back a little bit. That way I can lift up my hoop and it's not like right in your face. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So when we're talking about stitching, you may hear a lot of terms, and I like to fondly call it stitchinese. That's just my little running joke. And so I'm going to go over some terms that, let me straighten this up, that maybe you might be familiar with them, you might not. Some of the terms you can use for, like, if they're abbreviations, they stand for maybe a couple of different things. but I'm going to go over what the general consensus is. And so when you hear stitchers use these terms, you'll have a much better idea of what they're talking about. So starting off, let me look at my notes here while I'm doing this. Yeah, we teachers have to be able to multitask very well. Okay, so blending. Ooh, yeah, blending's got a lot more to do. I mean, you know, we think about it when we're cooking. We think about it when, especially if we're drawing or makeup, when you're blending your eyeshadows together. Yeah, if any of you are like makeup junkies like I am, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so stop short there. Now I'm going to skip 3 and do 3, which fall right under here. And so I skip over 3 and start there. So blending in cross stitch is simply where you are using 2 or more colors that you put the strands together. Usually it's like one single strand of one color and a single strand of a second color, and you put them both in the needle at the same time. So like here, I'm stitching with 2 strands of purple, but if I were blending, I might stitch with 1 strand of this light purple, and I might take my pink and do a strand of pink. Ooh, that would have been really pretty for this icing, wouldn't it? But we are just learning to read the pattern right now, and we're not getting like super creative with it. But you know, once you have gotten down how to read a pattern and you've made your first little piece, whatever it happens to be, then by all means experiment with it some. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to run my needle through my thread, and the hoop sometimes will get in the way a little bit, so if I don't want to undo the hoop, then sometimes I might like go run it up through here, which is perfectly okay. I can do this. There's no harm in that. And then just pull it through, and let me see what happened to my scissors. Let me put my needle. I didn't bring my needle minder in here or anything. Boy, I'm a mess today. I thought my scissors have disappeared. I do not know what's happened to my little ones, so I'm going to use these clunky ones. But for our purposes, it's okay. But thankfully, I did bring in my little cup here for my little ratty thread pieces, and that's going to be one of our cross-stitch terms that we talk about, actually. So let me mark this off. Yeah, so blending can be, I haven't seen a lot of patterns that ask for blending. Some of them, like if you are working on more complicated pieces or just ones that have just a lot more detail, then you might see some, let's say if you're doing a sky and they want you to blend a couple of colors together, then you might see some of that just to make the sky look a certain way. So I'm here in the background. I'm just I took my one big long purple thread and I am putting it together so I can do my loop. And now I'm reaching over to get my sponge here that I use. And all I'm doing with the sponge, if you don't remember, this is water. Okay, it's sponge where I put water on it and then I just wring it out. And I have cut these sponges. I just bought them at the dollar store, and I cut them out to fit into this little container, and I use 3 just so I can have a sponge that's like very close to the top. Just makes it easier to access. So I just run my thread over it, and then I'll flip it around so I can get the other side. But I'm just pulling my thread through there and just dampening my thread. It doesn't hurt it. It's not going to do anything to the color. It's not going to hurt anything because it dries so fast because you're really not putting that much on. But it really helps you to keep your floss smooth, where if you don't want to railroad it, which means you have to put a needle in between the 2 strands and then push it through the hole just to get your strands to lie flat next to each other, then you don't necessarily have to do that. Sometimes this will be enough And I'm not really watching for that right now because I'm just showing you how to read a pattern. So I'm not really concerned about the stitches being perfectly flat. But as you can tell, just from my running it over the sponge, it has really helped make those stitches, lie flatter, and they just look a lot better. Okay, so my next row, I'm going to start even with the one up here, and I'm going to go 4. So that means I'm just, if I don't really want to count, then I can just say, well, I have to go out one more than what I had up here. So I'm going to always start up from the bottom, and then we're going to find our loop here. I'm just holding that, and then go to my top right. Okay, and now when I'm back here again, I'm just going to run my needle through the loop, and there we go. And we're off and running again. Right now, the weather is so incredibly nasty outside. It is the time I'm recording this right now, it is February the 3rd of 2022, and winter in Kentucky can be touch and go. There are some winters where we don't really see much snow at all. They're very light, mild. There are other winters where it seems like we can't go 2 weeks without some storm coming through. And it seems like, just as soon as the snow melts off the ground, then we've got an ice storm coming. Thankfully, we don't have ice storms every year. I don't know that I could handle that, but we are expecting an ice storm to start, and it actually was supposed to go all the way from New Mexico up through the New England states. And the New England states have already been hit hard with inches and inches of snow. So, they're having a fun time up there. But it's not supposed to last that long. Through a 24-hour period, we're supposed to get some freezing rain and sleet. And then the temperature's supposed to start climbing on Sunday, and hopefully it'll start melting some of this off. But we live in a place where our driveway is more like a lane. Okay, so I'm going to skip 3 and then start in 1, and then I'm going to come out I'm going to come out 1 past this one. So we have a lane instead of a driveway, and that would be fine, except our lane, because of the way that our property is, we have a lake on our property, and the lane meanders around the lake, of course. So when we first come in off of the main highway is not that far. I mean, we're not out what I would call out in the boonies. We're not anywhere like that. The main highway is just right there. I mean, I can see it from the window. But when you come off of there and pull into our lane, you have this little, here we go. You have a small hill that you have to drive down a little bit and circle around, and then you're driving around the lake a little bit, and then as you come up towards the house, there's another hill that you have to climb in order to actually get to the driveway part and get into the garage. Normal weather days, whether it's rain, sun, whatever, it's fine. But when we start getting into snow is not that pleasant, although my husband does have a 4-wheel drive, so that is helpful. I don't yet. I will at some point. But especially when you get into sleet and the ice comes, then you're not going to make it up the hill to get to the house. And even if I parked down from the house and found walked in the grassy part and got back up the hill, I still couldn't get out on the roadway because there's still another hill that you have to get up on and then be able to pull out. So it's very tricky. So we don't like that kind of weather around here because honestly it means that we're going to be trapped in the house for a little while. So we always have to prepare for that. Okay, so I'm going to skip 3 and then do 3 more and come even with this one. So we just plan ahead, and that's okay. I don't like the feeling of being trapped. I don't like the feeling, and no one does, I know. I don't like the feeling of not being able to leave my house, even though I love my house. So, you know, I'm doing okay with it though because it shouldn't last that long. So we'll be all right. But I'm just kind of rambling about that right now because that's what we're dealing with, and we're just kind of watching the weather to see when it turns into sleet. Because you're supposed to, if you have a heat pump, if it turns to freezing rain and it's below, you know, it becomes below freezing and you know, you've got the rain and all of that. Yeah, you can tell how scientific I am, right? You're supposed to turn it to auxiliary heat so it doesn't make your heat pump work so hard. So we're kind of watching that. We'll see how it goes. We will just see how it goes. So anyway, now that I've jabbered about that for a few minutes, looking at let's see, we did blending. Okay, let me go to the next part. So I'm going to skip 2 and then do these last 4. So now I'm having a hard time getting my needle through today for some reason. There we go. But it looks like I think I've got my zoom mastered here, where I've got it zoomed pretty much at the right length. The other one's not so much so. So hopefully this one's a little bit better. Next term is confetti. So that, if there are any curse words in cross stitch, that would be it. I absolutely cannot stand confetti. Confetti, if you think about confetti at a party or a wedding, you think about little tiny pieces, and they're all different colors. So you don't really have 2 colors in a row. Well, that's what it is in cross stitch. When you're stitching something like, I'm stitching a piece on, it's a photo of Michael Jackson, and it's during the Motown 25 celebration. And he has on his sequin jacket, and then his shirt is sequined too, and it looks awesome on TV, but then when you're stitching it, it is not so awesome. It will be when I get done, but the process is painstakingly slow. Even for a slow stitcher, it slows down quite a bit because you don't really you might have 2 stitches of the same color in a row, but most of the stitches are going to be, you know, scattered here and there, and so you stitch 1 stitch of this color, and then you have to skip over all this and then restart again and stitch over here, and it's constantly trying to find all the stitches, and it's just it takes a long time, and it gets a little irritating because it's just tedious. That's the word I'm looking for, tedious. Okay, so I'm gonna take my highlighter and mark through this row that I've just done. And I'm trying to make sure I don't shake the camera. I had the table pretty steady, and then I had to move it. So I don't know if that was such a great idea or not, but it looks like it's shaking the camera a little bit. So I do apologize for that if that is the case. Trying to watch that here. Yep. Okay. So look how far we've come. We are getting really close to having the purple done. And we'll be ready to move to the next color, which will be awesome. Okay, so I am over on the right side. So I'm starting over here. I need to come in 1, and then I'm going to stitch until I come out 1 extra from down here. So I'm going to start right there. Okay, so there's confetti, so we got that out of the way. The technical definition of confetti is, let me see if I can, if you'll, I had to move that. I had a book, yeah, that's keeping the one leg of the table steady. You can see we're so professional around here. So anyway, hopefully that will help. The proper definition, if there is a proper definition of confetti, is single stitches of different colors in an area. I just call that the nice way of putting it. So there's that. Okay, and the next part, now you'll hear stitchers use this interchangeably. The word chart. This is a chart right here that we are working from. I usually call it a pattern. I think most stitchers do call it a pattern. Typically when I see the word chart, it's when companies are selling them, they refer to them as charts rather than patterns. Most stitchers that I have seen will refer to them as patterns. So that seems to be the difference. They're the same thing. I think chart is the more, quote, professional term, maybe, if you want to look at it that way. And that part. I'm trying so hard not to get that camera shaking because I know that's irritating to watch. Okay, so now I'm going to skip 2 and do 2. I'm listening to the rain outside. The rain itself is very calming to listen to, especially since I don't have to be out in it right now, which is a blessing. I am a teacher, so we had to, we had what we call an NTI day. Those have become a thing since the pandemic, which is actually, okay, I want you to see, I'm going to show you really close what I just did because I wasn't paying attention. I didn't get that thread quite in the hole. And normally that's not really an issue, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to correct this. So what I'm going to do is just take my needle gently and pull that back out. And then I'm going to take it off the screen here for just a minute so I can rethread it. And give me just a second here. We'll get that rethreaded. And now let's try this again. I forgot how many. Oh, I'm doing 2. Okay, I forgot how many I was doing. Okay, make sure I don't do that same thing again. So there we go. Make sure I actually get it where it needs. Well, look what, oh my goodness. Whew, I'm having a rough time. Okay, so what happened here was one thread just came out, and so I'm going to have to pull this back out again. And you know what? I'm kind of glad it did it because you're going to have days like that. You're going to have times where it's like nothing is going to work well. All right, let me get this rethreaded again. So you may have that, and you may get to a point where you're just getting really frustrated. Like you keep dropping things, you know, you dropped your needle on the sofa, you can't find it because you were actually going to thread something so you didn't have it on your needle minder, and it's just not going to go well. So you just have to take a breath and be patient. Okay, we're threading it again. And just be patient. And now I'm going to try this again. Let's try this one more time. There we go. And if you get to a point where you're just like, you know what, I don't need this. I don't need this aggravation. Nothing's going right. Then stop. Just stop. Take a breather. Go do something else. Sometimes you may have to put that stitching aside for a whole day. Sometimes you may have to put it aside for a week. That's okay. Do what you have to do. We're going to skip one, and then we're going to come all the way. We're even with this one. So, you're going to have times like that. So don't throw away the craft. And most people don't, but I know there are some people who, if it doesn't work right for them the first time, or if they have a really bad day, then all of a sudden it's just like, you know what, I don't even need this. I don't have to do this. I'm not going to. I have a young lady in my stitching club who is just, she's very busy right now. She has a lot of obligations with school and home, and she just really hasn't had time to cross stitch, and she likes it. She's very good at it. She enjoys it, but she just really doesn't have a lot of time right now. And I know she was feeling stressed when she wasn't able to come to our club meetings, and I could feel that pressure was building in her. And so I told her that she doesn't need to worry about that, to give herself some grace. I think we're really bad about not giving ourselves enough grace. And we need to do that more often. Well, I did it again. I'm going to see if I can just bring my needle back up through where I pulled it and then bring it back down in the right hole. And I don't think I did that, but let me try it. Sometimes you just have to finagle it a little bit. So see, I'm kind of having a rough time, but I'm not getting mad about it. I'm going to pull it out. It's part of it. It's part of it. So this is like time number 3 that I'm having to rethread just while we're here on this video. But I'm not going to edit this because I want you to see the struggle and understand that everybody has struggles. Everyone has a day where they're kind of like, this just really is not cooperating with me. And it's just going to happen. Okay, there we go. So with this young lady, I said, don't worry about it. I said, you just need to focus on what you need to focus on in this time of your life. I said, you know how to cross stitch. It's there for you. And, if you have to wait a few years and go back to it, that's fine. There are plenty of videos out there to help you relearn the craft if you want to. And it won't take you as long this next time because you already are familiar with it. So I said, there may come a point where you really need the cross stitch and you've got some time to do it, and it's going to be a comfort to you. And I think she appreciated that. And I think, especially right now, we just have to give ourselves, especially ourselves, as well as give other people some breathing room. We have to extend some grace. We have to understand everybody is going through something different, and it causes us to feel and act in certain ways. And we just have to be aware of that and respect that. There are certain things, you don't want to put up with and shouldn't have to put up with. But, sometimes we just have to let people breathe a little bit. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm really hoping that camera's not shaking like I think it is. Okay, so let's do one more term, and then I'm gonna skip one here, as you can see, and then I'm gonna stitch until I come out like one short on that one. So let me skip one there. All right. Let's see, cross country. Okay. So cross country, we think about track, and we think about runners who are running long distances. So with cross stitch, cross country is where, let's say I've got my thread here, and this is where I am right now, but I'm having to maybe do a stitch that's over here. So when I finish this stitch, I will just move my needle over here and just bring it up over here. So you're going to have thread that's trailing back here. You can do it over 3 or 4 stitches. It's fine. Sometimes I'll do it over a little more depending on what it is. For the most part, you can waste a lot of thread doing cross country, and sometimes it'll show through to the front. So you just want to be careful with that. But that's what they mean by that. And sometimes they will refer to cross country as if you're just like, I'm stitching this one color and I'm going all the way through the icing part and just stitching this one color before moving on to the next. Some I've heard them refer to that as being cross country. It's more for I guess full coverage pieces that require a lot more stitches. But saying it like this is really, it's not, I mean, there's nothing that you do that's wrong about cross stitch, but it's not the proper, what we would call the proper use of the term. It's really if you're trailing your thread in the back just because you're wanting to stitch one color and you don't want to stop your thread and start it again. So that's really what we refer to as cross country. Okay, so I'm gonna, well, stop this one. Okay, so turn it over, and I'm gonna bring it up this way again simply because the hoop I can't move my hand this way the hoop gets in the way. And so it's okay to do this. I just make sure I run it under a few threads to make sure that it's secure. Pull that through, and then I'm going to snip this and put it here in my container. Got a whole mix in there right now. Okay, I'll empty that out pretty soon. But let me go ahead and, okay, you stay there, needle. You don't need to be rolling. So I'm gonna take my highlighter and take care of this row. Looks like my blue's trying to run down on me, so don't run out on me, blue. I need you to hang in there with me till I get done with this. Okay, I know that camera's shaking a little bit there. Oh, wow, we have 2 more rows, and that is it. So I know it's going to take me a little bit to do those 2 rows, but the next time we should be able to do those 2 rows, and then we are going to start with our pink. The pink won't take as long, and I'll show you how might be the best way to do the pink. And then we're going to jump down here and we're going to do the brown, and then we're going to fill in with the black, and we will be done because they don't have any back stitching on here where you could outline it, although you could very easily outline it if you wanted to. I think it looked pretty cool, but the pattern does not require outlining, so we will not do that with this one. We're just doing some basic stuff. But that will do it for this session. I'm going to try to put these out a little more often just to go ahead and have them out there and get them done, so you can, if you want to binge watch some of these a little bit more, then you're able to do that. And we will talk more about some cross-stitching terms. I'll try to do more cross-stitching terms than sitting here talking about the weather. I just hope that you are creative and that you be blessed, and I will see you later. Bye.